Important notice: the following content may be triggering. Viewer discretion is advised. All discussions are based on personal opinions and experiences. If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to a local support organization. Important notice: the following content may be
All right, I believe we're live. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Through the Eyes of Survivors.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, I'm your host, Tara Woodlee. I'm the president of Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. So in this episode, I'm joined by Amanda Johnson, our Director of Operations, and Sheila Shoemaker. She is a strong woman. She's an advocate for survivors. She is a survivor herself. She's a former board member here at Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. She has a special guest, Angie, with her today. And we're welcome to have you. It's Sheila definitely has a strong voice and experience providing inspirational change for this fight against domestic violence. So we're welcome to have her here. We're going to talk about a very critical and overlooked issue. The secret struggles of domestic violence survivors who are seeking shelter and justice. So shelter is a lifeline, and they are often the first place that survivors turn when escaping abuse. They offer protection, right? Resources, a path towards rebuilding a life free from violence. In the United States, statistics are thousands of survivors seek refuge in domestic violence shelters each year. And according to the National Network to End Domestic Violence, in just one day, over 70,000 survivors and children receive services in these shelters and advocacy programs all across the country. So there are roughly 1,900 domestic violence shelters nationwide. They provide anything from emergency housing to counseling, legal advice, childcare, job training, that kind of thing. And the majority of these shelters are run by dedicated staff and volunteers who work tirelessly to provide safety and support. And they don't offer just a bed for the night, right? They are to be a symbol of hope. And for many shelters, they are the only escape of danger. Nearly 90% of women and children in shelters report feeling safer after seeking refuge. They offer trauma-informed care, help survivors secure protective orders, connect them to resources that rebuild independence. This is a place that saves lives. There's no doubt about it. But what happens when a shelter fails the very people it's supposed to protect? If survivors arrive expecting safety, support, only to be met with broken promises, mismanagement, or even neglect, what do you do? What if the system meant to empower survivors becomes the barrier? So tonight we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the cracks in the system, right?
Yes,
the shelters that take in donations but never pass them on to victims. Staff who keep offices heated while survivors freeze. Funding that is promised but never delivered. So our guests have firsthand experiences on the failures and firsthand experiences on when the system works. So We're promising, survivors have been promised education grants that never materialize, shelters that failed to provide very basic needs, and staff who become more focused on their own comfort rather
Yep.
than the well-being of those they serve. So
Yes.
where do we go from here? How do we hold these shelters accountable? Will they, how do you hold them accountable while we still recognize the importance of the services provided? So that's the question I have for y'all out there. If you want to type that into the chat while we're talking, we'd love to have you a part of the conversation.
Yep.
So shelters in the court systems are meant to protect survivors, ladies. But we are facing some devastating failures in this, right?
Yep.
So here's the truth, right? A
Yep.
failing shelter is dangerous, and it's as dangerous as no shelter at all, right? So let's
Amen.
talk about that, right?
Yep.
So let's start with Sheila.
Yes.
Share your experience when you went into a shelter. The first time you went into a shelter, you had a great experience. What did you experience?
So I wouldn't. I don't think I'd be where I was at without that. There was good people at that shelter. They had strong people in the position that knew what they were doing. They were there with a helping heart. Um, so I was taken there, and you know my story. I couldn't even get in and out of bed by myself. They went so far as to bring a new bed into that place, so I was able to get in and out of bed. They bought a new bed for me. They provided counseling for me. They bought clothing for me, my prescriptions. They were kind, caring, and loving to me, but they were also firm with me and let me know, hey, a lot of this work that you're going to need to do to get your life back is going to require you to get up and do it yourself. But let me tell you how to do it. So then they held my hand. They gave me a hand up, not a hand out. They showed me the way, but they didn't leave me to do it on my own. You know, they were there with me. They were my support network. I mean, that's what I needed. You know, I needed to not feel sorry for myself, but I needed to know I wasn't alone. And they were there for me, and they still are. I talk to them all the time. I go and visit them. They were my best support network. I don't think I'd be where I was at today without them, without Break the Silence. You guys know that.
Oh, yeah.
The best thing you can do, the best thing you have after going through something that devastating to your life is to surround yourself with great people that understand what you've been through and where you need to go. The biggest breakdown after that is to end up somewhere where you don't get the proper care that you need, and you need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Amanda, I know that you had good and bad experiences within the shelter. So let's talk about some of the good ones first. What were the good experiences you had as far as you and your children when you entered the shelter system?
The best experience that I had when I did enter into the shelter system with my children was the counseling that was provided through the children's services. That was amazing to me. The children's counselor was a blessing. They had camp for the kids where they were able to go like ride horses and, do day trips. And, I'm from Pittsburgh, PA. So they were able to go to the zoo and do different stuff. So I definitely was so appreciative of the childcare and the programs they did when we first had going in, because my children were pretty traumatized by the change and everything that was happening. So that was a blessing. And I did have an amazing counselor who definitely I felt treated me more beyond with respect and love and care than she needed to at times. Definitely was my go-getter when I needed to get things from welfare done. I definitely was she was my person. She still is my person if I need questions, and that to me, even that she's no longer in that position in the shelter. Yeah, that is some of the best experience I had is with my counselor there and the children's counselor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Angie, can you talk about what good experiences, what kind of services you got that were good in
Feels
your
like good experience.
right there, Sheila? She is a good experience. I'll tell you that. She is something else. Um,
I love you.
We got Jim in
I
the
love you.
comments saying self-awareness and threat identification are key. We must educate our daughters so they can make wise, educated choices with everything they are in contact with. I agree. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Absolutely. So I know that Sheila, you personally started advocating and working within a shelter system, which is where you and Angie met. And
Yep.
I know that Amanda had some experiences that definitely weren't everything that were promised either. So, what services were, like, Amanda, let's start with you. What services were you promised at the shelter, right? But how did they compare to what you actually got provided?
So there was a program that I received that you had to qualify for called transitional housing. In that transitional housing, what they guaranteed is that you got apartment to live in. But after you succeeded your time of being in that apartment and getting your life together, you would be able to move into the top of the list of our housing authority. And they would give us immediate placement after the program was over. That didn't happen. I was told by the shelter, okay, go ahead, start looking at apartments that's under the housing authority. And I did. And it was actually a very unpleasant process because I had to actually really kind of argue with the owner of the apartment for me to stay because they knew I was a victim of domestic violence and they didn't want me there. They kept telling me they didn't want drama brought in. I kept having to tell him he's incarcerated. He's incarcerated. I promise you, I'm a full-time worker. I was a teacher, a preschool teacher. I was a mom of 3 walking to work 20 minutes every day to work and back because I didn't drive. So I had to fight for that, and I finally got it. The woman gave it to me. I called the housing authority, and they went, "What are you talking about? We never promised you housing."
Oh,
After
what?
this program was over, I was standing in my work break room, and my coworkers could hear me crying because I knew I was going to be homeless and had nowhere because I was not making enough with my job to be able to, at that time, pay to live where I was living. And it ended up me having to move in with my ex-abuser's parents.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely a difficult position to be in.
The worst.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know Angie, you and Sheila, yeah, that's why, met at the shelter she was advocating at. So what were some of the experiences you have of things that you were promised but didn't receive?
Help, for one. My stuff got stolen in the shelter, and the only person that would help me get my stuff back was this one.
Heat?
The heat was out from the time I checked in on November 29th till the time I checked out on December 31st.
And just so you know, we're in Indiana. So it was, now,
There was
sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt.
No, there were babies in there.
There were 13 children in that building. And
if those adults are cold,
it was ice cold in there. I mean, there was heat in the staff portion of the building, but no heat in the client section of the building. No heat.
That amazes me.
The thermostat was off. It wasn't even turned on.
Yeah. How in the world can the staff maintain themselves in heat, but survivors and clients and children are not receiving that as part of the services? So,
the thermostat would be set on 74 and it would register 61, maybe.
And that's when winter was first starting. I mean, literally, I don't know how many emails I sent, and they're waiting on quotes. What are you waiting on? Every child in that building was sick the entire time I was there.
And grown-ups.
And the grown-ups. I mean, it was a breed, nonstop. But I was coming to work sick anyway because but there was no reason. The thermostat was physically turned off. It was not even on in that section of the building all the way through the month of December.
Well, even through that cold snap, I think, because you called
Yes.
me, Sheila, talking about that where it was like below zero. And there
Yes.
was no heat.
Yeah.
They told us-
I was
they told
crying.
us-
I was upset and mad.
They
I
told me
called
to give
Tara
us an
crying.
extra blanket.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. They had one little space heater and they were putting in the hallway. Now, keep in mind, this space heater was about this big. Okay.
Mhm.
And they told the clients they would have to keep their door open so that he could get in. This is a co-ed shelter, men and women. There was a man in there at the time. And now you're asking women that are traumatized with children to leave their door open ajar while you've got a man that they don't know, that they're unfamiliar with, that have been traumatized to leave their door open. And one little heater in the hallway is not going to heat all those rooms.
Seven rooms.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And then when I put that heater out there, then they said it wasn't safe and they took it away. What?
Oh, my.
Yes, ma'am.
But then they brought it back for certain people.
Yeah, one person was allowed to have the heater and it was directed at her door. One person.
There's just, to me, there's no excuse. Amanda, you were telling me of a similar situation that you know of at the shelter you were at, correct?
Yes. It wasn't more of a heating situation. It was more of, we were a mixed shelter. And unfortunately, when it's a mixed shelter of DV and homeless, I completely understand that there's needs to be care for everybody.
Yes.
But unfortunately, when it's domestic violence and then someone who may be coming in a different health mind frame, and you're in with children, there was a lot of instances where my children were put in questionable circumstances that, as a mother, I asked, hey, can we have a private room? When I first went in, I did not get a private room. I had one child. The last time I went in, I had 3. So I did get my private room. But the first time I went in, I just had my daughter. And someone picked up my daughter. We had to do these nightly meetings where they would make everybody meet at night. And they'd say, we want your children in bed. And we want you all to come down if you can and do these meetings with us. And they talk about like house chores and all that stuff. And I showed up, and this woman that I've never met in my life walks down holding my baby, and she's not staff. And she's not in the right frame of mind either. I begged them to put me in a private room because they had no families there. And I said, if you have a family come, please just let me stay. I'll get out the moment the family comes in, but I don't feel comfortable. They would not. The day later, I went back to my abuser because I watched it happen the second time I went in with several other women coming in with babies because they just didn't feel comfortable or supported there. And they'd rather go back to their abuser where they had some control. And I know that doesn't make sense, to a lot of people who hasn't committed a domestic violence relationship. But if you have, that will make sense. You have some comfortability there. Leaving is very hard. Leaving is very scary. And when we leave, we need all the support we need. And that, to me, that was so hard because I was so scared and no one was listening to me. I was kind of almost being kind of like my eyes rolled. It was just very, very hard.
Yeah, that's so discouraging and disheartening. Didn't one of you ladies, somebody told me that they knew of someone who went and bought a space heater and they got kicked out of the shelter. I thought that was you, Amanda, who was telling me about that.
No, that was not. No.
Okay.
Now, so there was an incident where I was at. So before the director went on vacation for the holidays, she had purchased this. So they provide the groceries at this shelter. They buy them. And Angie's laughing because that's what I'm about to say. So I was doing inventory of the groceries. And I would look at the groceries and I would send them, hey, this is what we're low on. Because that's an all-inclusive shelter. They purchase the groceries. They make a meal plan. I don't know who made this meal plan. That's a whole nother subject. Like,
how to
these
make
kids,
an apple pie without an oven.
Yeah, the oven never worked. So,
supposed to make an apple pie.
Yeah, they would put apple pie and all the stuff that needed to be baked, but there's no oven. It was like, okay, fix the oven. The heat doesn't work. The oven doesn't work. But anyway, so the groceries, I'm doing inventory of the groceries, and the 5 gallons of milk were purchased. You've got 13 children and 7 adults in here, 5 gallons of milk. So I sent an email and said, there's no milk. Well, I bought 5 gallons. That should have lasted them. I was a single parent with 3 children. I went through a gallon of milk a day. So now I'm buying milk and bringing it. She said they can use their food stamps to buy milk if they need more milk. Okay, but if they buy food on their food stamps, you told them they have to share it with everyone. So they can't they can't buy it for just their children. So the one young lady that was there that was pregnant, she spent all her food stamps buying food. Then they kicked her out. Now she's out pregnant, no food and nowhere to go, and no food stamps. And I'm like, that's not fair. So you can't have it both ways. If you want them to use their food stamps, then they should be able to keep that for themselves or their own children. Because if they use all their food stamps feeding all these kids in here when we have federal grant money because you don't want to buy more milk and you throw them out, they have nothing to feed their children with. But most of the groceries would go in the staff refrigerator. Well, it's not for us. I don't think not one dime should be spent on the staff. We get paid. They're not getting paid to be there.
We bring
It would go out to their cars.
And all the pop would go in the office.
Yes.
All the beef sticks or cheese sticks or lunch meat or any of that stuff.
And they would go
in the break room.
They would go for the staff, and I wouldn't eat it. I wasn't going to eat or drink stuff that was purchased. It should have been bought for them, not me.
And we had 2 of them that had special diets. We had one that was getting ready to have her gallbladder out.
Yeah.
The pregnant one had to eat every 2 hours, and every time she went in there, her stuff was gone.
Yeah.
No, that's horrible. We got some comments. Definitely. Let's see what we have here. Lily says she just got a relationship, still in denial. She's struggling. I think they popped into the chat there, our support line, if you need someone to talk to, Lily, absolutely. Paris responded to Lily saying she's been out 7 years, but it seems like yesterday. It's like a nightmare. Misty says she can't imagine that, AJ. She's sorry. Lily, again, happy 4 kids. Yeah.
Lily did say she's in Indiana.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sheila, she said she's in Indiana.
Oh, tell her to find me on Facebook. I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
My name, that's who I am. Tell her to find me on Facebook.
Yeah, look her up on Facebook, Lily. And definitely, Audrey there. Audrey is our chairman of our board of directors, and she helped to run our support line. So definitely give a call. Support line is really great over there. And
amazing team.
Let's see what else. Paris says she never got support. She flew from Washington, D.C. capital and went to Atlanta, Georgia to express her situation. A total of 6 years, no help yet. It is so frustrating because there are so many things that us as survivors know, and they just don't want to hear from us that could help improve this system. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why we have to be louder.
Mm-hmm.
We just got to be louder.
Yeah, they should not be allowed to take their food stamps. Not sure if that is legal.
They didn't actually take it.
They didn't take them. They just wanted them to spend them.
They would tell you if you wanted something special, you needed to use your food stamps for it. Well, then they'd have us put it in the community kitchen.
So everybody could eat it.
And then everybody would eat it. And then, like, the pregnant one would come out to eat her food every 2 hours and
it'd be gone.
Yeah, there is funding for food at these shelters. They
Absolutely.
should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but in certain people that were, like, say, went to church with the director, they could put their food in the staff refrigerator, but no one else could. So, I'm all about
to write your name on that.
Yeah. So I'm about, if you're going to do for one, you should do for all. I'm not about this person gets special treatment and the other one doesn't. That's just not how I operate. So it depended on who you were.
Yes. And Audrey was saying in the comments, she's the one I heard the story from. So she was telling that, now I remember, absolutely. So she was telling me that she knew of someone that they went and bought a space heater for themselves in the shelter, and they kicked her out for purchasing that. It wasn't allowed.
Okay. See, I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, if you're talking about the shelter I worked at.
No, Audrey had somebody call in on our support line telling them that that's what happened.
Yes.
Okay. They would tell us that it was a fire hazard, but yet they were up there in the office using them.
Yeah. Like I brought one, but it got so, even our portion of the building at one point, of course, if you have two separate heaters because you have such a huge building, if one's not working, the other heater eventually is going to start having problems. I bought my own space heater and I bring it in every evening. And what I was doing in the evening when they weren't there, I was taking my space heater and I was giving it to the people that had babies, that they were the rooms that were the furthest away from like the laundry room, because that's the one that got the coldest at night. And there was that lady in there with twins. And I would give them the space heater at night and be like, here, warm your room up. So really, I bought the space heater at night. I would tell them I was using it. I was bringing it in there for them so they could warm up at night.
When babies are going to bed with their coats on,
yes,
there's a problem.
You can see your breath in that room. So I would tell them I'm bringing my space heater in so I don't get cold. I bring it in and I put it in their rooms at night. And then I'd have them bring it back to me before they got there so they couldn't see that I was keeping them warm. That's ridiculous to have to do that. That's what I was doing.
Yeah, that is just horrible. And here's the thing. The communities that have shelters in their area, a lot of people make donations to these shelters. They're local shelters. They donate food, clothing, necessities, and yet I've heard
what happens when the staff goes through it first and takes home what they want and leaves the rest for the shelter, or takes it to their church.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing.
To say, I've heard reports all across the country that they're taking donations for themselves. So, Sheila, you want to talk some about that you personally saw and experienced that?
Yeah. I'll give you a perfect example. When the young lady that was pregnant came in. So when we've got a crisis call and they're incoming, we have a bed bug policy, of course, for good reason. So when everything they bring in, we put in a tote for 72 hours with bed bug strips just to make sure nothing comes in. So they're we give them something to wear. One outfit, one shirt, one pair of pants. That's it. Well, I mean, okay, what are they going to wear for 3 days? So we had, when the pregnant girl came in, we gave her the shirt and the pair of pants. She got there before I came that night. We got donations in. And it was a man came in and donated all his wife's clothes. She had passed from cancer. Her dying wish is that everything came to the shelter for survivors, not the staff, the survivors.
Right.
So all the stuff is sitting in the hallway. The young lady coming down, she goes, is it possible I can have something else to wear? I can't just wear this. I look and there's all this stuff there. Most of the stuff still had tags on it. I said, go through this stuff. The girl that was leaving said, oh, the director's going to be mad. She wants to go through that first. I said, why? It's not for her. So I opened the bags up, said, here you go. So as a matter of fact, I got all the ladies and I said, come on, ladies, let me drag out here in the living room. Everybody go through it. They lost their minds because I let these ladies go through it first. We go through it first. I said, for what? It's not for you. I'm not going through it. You're not going through it first. It got here on my watch. They went crazy because it was designer clothes that had tags on it, and they wanted it first. Because the director, some of the staff there, they would go, all of them except for me and one other person. They would go through the stuff. They would take it home, or they would take it to their church for church sales. It's not donated for that. To me, that stuff isn't for me. I know what it's like to start over with nothing. People hadn't donated clothes to me when I got to the shelter. All I had was a T-shirt and a pair of shorts, and it was covered in my blood. That's all I had.
I had paper clothes and no shoes.
Yeah. I mean, so they need everything. Sometimes you're starting over with nothing. What kind of person am I to go through something and take it for myself first? Mm-hmm. Who does that? I didn't take that job because of the money. Believe me, it wasn't for the money. It's because that's what I want to do. And I couldn't sit back and watch it. That's what they did every day. That donation is for the men and women and the children that need that extra. Hey, we're here to help you. Not, hey, here's my leftovers. No,
that's just not right to do. Absolutely. No. I can't even imagine. So ladies, when the shelter fails survivors like this, it can take an emotional toll, right? It's very damaging to have these broken promises and these failures. So how did this affect, like, let's start with, Angie, you're the most recent one now. How has that affected your healing process?
Not healed.
The work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to send her to another shelter where she would have to work in a warehouse Monday through Friday for her stay. They'd given her an extension to stay at the shelter, but then
And they
abruptly
revoked
changed
it.
their mind. And I think
Didn't tell me why.
they were just going to toss her out. And that's when I told her, let them take you there, and I'll send an Uber to come get you. You're coming here. Because working full time right now in a warehouse so she could stay at this horrible place, and it's not a nice place. It's,
Fighting.
Yeah, fighting. That's not what she needed. She
Right.
needs stability and support. So now she's with me. I mean, she's at my, a different location, but she's with me, and I'm going to go to
It threw
court
me
with
right
her.
back into the feelings that I had before I went to the mental hospital.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's hard.
But she's good.
That's real hard.
If she can remember her name when she goes to court.
I wasn't here and
Go
knowing
ahead.
that day.
Yeah, at a time when you should be, at least being able to get your head together. That's what the shelter is supposed to be providing for.
Not ours.
To think clearly, to move forward clearly, to provide safety. The last thing you need is this kind of battle. Mm-hmm. You could have had that battle at home with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad. It's really sad.
Yep.
Well, it's like they pick and choose in there who they want to help, and
it's not supposed
I wasn't
to be that
on
way.
that list.
That's so sad. I'm so sorry, Angie. That is just a horrible experience. Amanda. Yeah, Amanda, how did it affect your healing now that you're like years out and reflecting on it?
Oh, it stifled it. It stifled it. It really, like, I kind of got jolted back, especially because I had to go live with my abuser's parents. Though, I mean, I went back into another kind of abusive relationship. It just wasn't with him. I had to go and live in his house. Memories of being there with him, pictures surrounded everywhere. My children had to be with his parents. I mean, it was just, it was from me leaving and having boundaries and saying, I don't want to speak to him. He's in jail, to him calling, speaking to his parents. And it was just, I felt again, like everything I tried, and I did all the things, and all the things were hard. As you said, Sheila, at the beginning, like, you got to show up for yourself. And I did. Like, I did the hard things. I walked 20 minutes, 6 a.m. to work every morning with children that did not want to walk and were toddlers and would have meltdowns halfway through and be carrying a child and carrying their backpacks, carrying my stuff. I did the things. I did the things because in my head I was being told, if you do this, this is what you'll. And so I was doing the things. And it did. It made me distrustful of people that said they were going to help me. And it did send me back for a minute to the point where, again, I was questioning, who was really genuine in my corner, because it was another letdown. It was another blow up in your face of when, again, you're doing the hard things, you're showing up and you're doing right by, because people say, well, why don't you just leave? Well, why didn't she just leave? Well, this is another, there's women out there doing the hard things, and we're getting failed by the system that's supposed to be protecting us.
Exactly.
So, Amanda, you want to read through some of our comments that we've gotten, since we got a whole bunch of comments?
Yeah, we did. So Misty was like, this was what? Like, yeah, like, this is ridiculous when you guys were talking, Sheila, about everything that's been happening over there with you and Angie. It's disgusting. I'm sorry this has happened. Audrey said, this breaks my heart. Audrey said, no doubt this is a part of a reason why women go back. And that is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That is important.
Yeah.
And then Lily said, I am back. Lily, we hope that you can find a safe shelter. And again, please reach out to Sheila.
Yeah, please. I think one of the best things that I ever did for myself was go to that retreat. I I think one of the most amazing things you can do for healing, because nobody understands us like another survivor does. People ask you, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you do this? No one can answer. I can't. I mean, no one can answer. We can answer for them. We can answer that question, but we can't make them fully understand. But we get each other. We get each other. When I went to that retreat in 2018, that was the most healing and the best thing I ever did for myself. Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence retreat, hands down, best thing I ever did for myself. To meet and spend time with other survivors that fully, not one time did anybody ask me, so why didn't you go? Why didn't you leave? Or what'd you do to make him mad? No, everybody, they didn't have to ask me because they already knew. And we understood each other. And those are lifelong friendships. I mean, Lex was just at my house last week with her baby.
Lex is one of her fellow retreat goers.
Yes.
We call each other's sister survivors. We have survivor sisters out there. Those are the sisterhood that you make after you attend one of our retreats. So you're lifelong friends when you.
Yeah.
And we're going to see Chantel the end of August. Lex and I are going to see Chantel, another attendee. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you network with people like you. Is like if you're trying to quit smoking, or people that are going to AA classes. Same difference. I mean, if you want to build yourself up and learn how to sit, move forward. Get on the same journey with someone that's already been on that path. It's maybe a mile down the road further than you. They can tell you what the road looks like.
Yeah,
it's the best thing you can do for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I see some people inquiring the retreat. So if I have a moderator over there who can pop in a link to it. This year we're having it in Colorado Springs. We kind of move it in different places every year. And this year it includes therapy with horses. I'm really excited about that.
Look at Angie. I want to go.
Sheila and Andrew are like, we'll go.
Yeah.
You can look on our website and apply for the retreat, and someone will contact you. Absolutely. So
I'll drive.
Yeah, it's in June.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I can't drive. Yeah, she'll drive.
We would love that. So you want to go to some more comments there, Amanda?
Sure. Here I got we'll show this one. From Jim. Yeah. So many times women who are abused don't know who to turn to or where to turn to. There's no easy answers. I'm sorry. Still, there are organizations that help find safe places through their helplines. And that is true because we have our support line.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we're not trying to scare people out of going to shelters because 90% of shelters out there are doing good work. But there are the ones that aren't, and we need to have the discussions about what to do with that and what to do with it as a community. So
absolutely.
Any other comments that you wanted to highlight?
Let me see here. I'm just trying to read through. We got amen. Then we have, is it worth getting checked out if I think I may have something wrong with me from an attack, like something had happened as a result of being throttled or choked? Absolutely, Lily. Absolutely. TBI is a side effect from choking any kind of head injury, and that can have long injuries. I've experienced that personally at my domestic violence. So please get checked out for the better being of you. There's people out there that want to help you, and a medical profession can even give you resources knowing that you've been physically harmed from this.
Absolutely.
And it can harm you years down the road. I mean, they've now attributed, I don't know if you're aware of this, Tara, that my brain aneurysm, they've attributed that partially to blows to the head and my epilepsy. So it can do lifelong damage. So yes, people, you get your, do your due diligence, go to the doctor, ask the right questions. If you think there's something wrong, go get checked out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Make sure you seek medical treatment. Don't let it go. Don't ignore the small signs. Seek medical treatment. We suffer long-term repercussions because of things that happen to us. It's
Absolutely.
okay to ask for help.
Absolutely. And seeing a doctor and reporting leaves a paper trail for you, which helps you so much more in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Setting
So
your phone to record every time they enter the room
Yeah.
helps you too.
Oh my gosh, she was so smart about this. I'm in awe of her. She has hours and hours and hours of documentation.
yeah, that's
She
what
was,
Jim's saying. Document.
My document. That's
Absolutely.
what Jim just said. Anytime you've been abused in any way, get checked out and document. As you said, document.
Pictures and recordings.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, so Sheila, I know that we're going to talk about how we can hold some of these shelters accountable, and sometimes it takes some different steps. But I know with yours, we discussed like when this kind of thing does happen, who do you report to within the system first? Where do you start?
Well, you should start with the executive director and the board of directors. That's who I went to first. I didn't get a whole lot of reaction out of them. So then I went a step further. I wrote a complaint letter to the National Coalition to see if they would act on it. It's still a work in progress. Um, I'm gathering documentation. Sometimes if you get no other result, go to the media. Um, there was a shelter in Michigan that we had. They weren't doing very well. They weren't treating the clients. I hate to say clients, our fellow brothers and sisters. They weren't treating them very well. We tried to do it the nice way, the proper way, and go through the channels, and we weren't getting anything in return. So sometimes you have to go to the media. The media is a good avenue. And it's amazing how that worked. It worked. It
Yeah.
worked. People were held accountable. We're not second class citizens because we were victims of a crime. That's what this is. It's not. People want to say love or spats. No, it's a violent crime. And we deserve the utmost respect and to be treated like we're human beings that need love and care. And when these donations and federal grant money are given to these shelters, the staff that are working there need to look at us just like we are. We're amazing human beings that need a hand up, not a hand out. And they're working there because they're supposed to love and want to help us. And if they don't, they need to seek other employment.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, yeah, just to reiterate that, there's always a director. And if the director's part of the problem, there is a board that oversees them. And then if they won't listen, there are different, these shelters get grants from the government. There's various things that can be reported. And hopefully take action. And I agree with Sheila. If all else fails, go to the media.
Yep.
Because the community will rally, because the community does support. No doubt, every community will support their local shelter in some way, shape, or form. And if they find that as a community it's lacking, somebody's going to step up and do something about it 9 times out of 10. So,
Yep. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, is there anything else? Like, Sheila, I know you were talking about that you're going to be doing something locally in the area where you are.
Yes, I'm kind of excited.
Talk about
The lady owns a local salon. She's amazing. She does a lot in the community. And she was asking other stylists in the area if they wanted to do a fashion show, who'd be willing to volunteer. And of course, being me, I popped in the comments and said, hey, you ought to do it in October. And why don't you feature survivors? Anybody to be willing for the fashion show? And she goes, wait a minute, why don't I mark out or black out a date in October? And why don't you give me a list of survivors and I'll do makeovers for free? Now, this lady's one of the best stylists in our area. She's amazing. I've seen her work. She does great. I mean, she really does good. Amazing. You Fade Salon. I've never had my hair done there because it's expensive, but they really do good work. So October 11th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. She's blocked off time for me, and I'm getting a list together. Angie here is number one on my list because I think she Not because she's beautiful inside and out, but I think she just needs a day where she just makes to remind her that she's beautiful. She's number one on the list. She's doing a day where she's doing makeovers for survivors. So I'm excited about that. So Lindsay Ogle at Fade Salon in Kokomo, Indiana. Thank you, Lindsay. We love you.
Yes. I love when the community rallies around survivors like this.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful thing. So
It is. It makes a whole difference. It does.
Yeah, it does.
Because that's the treatment the community should have for their fellow people who live there, who are struggling, and they need, like you said, they need help. They don't need a handout. They need support.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's it.
Yeah.
Just remind them. If you tell somebody every day how fabulous they are, which I tell people. Actually, my counselor at the shelter I was in, my assignment was to post a sticky note in the mirror for myself. One thing. She's laughing because
Cato was doing.
Yeah. I had a girl doing it at the shelter. I said, post a sticky note to yourself every morning. Just one thing you can think, one positive thing, even if it's just hey, my eyelashes look good this morning. So that when you go in the bathroom and you look at yourself, something positive about yourself every day. And I did it. And the little girl that was at the shelter with me in North Carolina, I come in one morning and she had posted one for me. She was calling me Nana. You're the best Nana. So she caught on that's what I was doing. Right. And she started doing it too. If every day, if you're told you're awful, you're horrible, you're no good, you start to think that you are. Mm-hmm. So I said, start telling yourself something positive. Even if you wake up and you think this morning, I'm the worst person in the world, find something positive to tell yourself every day. Change your mindset. Feel good, look better, feel better. And start thinking about yourself that way instead of the negative. Find something good that you know about yourself. Even if it's, hey, today my toenails look good. If that's all you can find, focus on that one good thing. Start your day off like that.
Absolutely.
I agree.
You pointing at me?
Because you need to think more positive. I love you.
It will take time. You'll get there, I promise, Angie.
Yes.
I promise.
Right after we're done eating all the Oreos.
Yes, get some peanut butter for those Oreos too.
That's good on ice cream.
Yep, I got you.
So in the end, rounding out this conversation, even with all these failures that we've been talking about, we'll start with you, Amanda. Do you believe that it's still important to have shelters? And if you do, what does need to change?
We need to understand that there needs to be a separation of the women that we have for DV and homeless, but also we need to have better support inside the shelters of understanding that we're bringing in staff, as Sheila said, whose hearts is in it, training, empathy, people making sure that these shelters are being run correctly, audits. I mean, as a preschool teacher, we had secret surprise visitors checking to see if our daycare was appropriate, if we were doing what we were saying we were doing to be certified to be taking care of these children. Well, you're not only taking care of children in a home like homeless shelter, you're taking care of women and children. And I think that there needs to be some accountability of where these shelters are being checked, or they're, as you say, or do you have the appropriate heating systems? Is there food? Where's the food? There needs to be checks. There needs to be people holding these people accountable, for sure.
Absolutely. Yes. What would you add to that, Sheila and Angie? Do you feel they're necessary, but what needs to change? Yeah.
Treat them like people, not criminals. That's exactly what the shelter felt like.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there has to be some rules and regulations. I get it. You've got a bunch of people you're putting together, number one, that are traumatized, that are not, they don't know each other a lot of times. So you've got to have some rules and regulations.
And you shouldn't be allowed to just pick a victim up from one shelter and drop them in another. Because that does not do very good with their PTSD and stuff.
No. But keep in mind, too, that a lot of times they've been so restricted in their life. The last thing they need is someone standing over top of them like they're a warden. They need compassion, understanding, and a little bit of freedom to say what goes on in their life now. They've had no say-so in their life. None,
Right.
zero. And I really think there needs to be an organization that secret shops these shelters, because there was one for a while. We had a secret Facebook group, and we would secret shop shelters, and we graded them.
Yeah,
And I think
that's
there needs to
actually
be an
really
official organization that does that. There needs to be one, because you would have, a whole lot of a different interaction with people within the shelter if they didn't know every time there was a crisis call, whether it was legit or if it was that organization calling to grade you that physically showed up at the shelter. How are you treating me? How are you talking to me? Like that, was it 90 Days In on TV, that show?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be amazing if they did something like that at shelters?
Mm-hmm.
But I know they can't, because you're of, privacy for the people that are there. But they need something like that in place to see whether or not they're treating these amazing people, because that's what we are. We're amazing. They need to make sure that we're be treating with the way that we need to be treated, that's beneficial to get us back on track and get our lives back. Because once we're back on track and our lives are back the way they need to be, we're forced to be reckoned with. I mean, look what we've been through, and we're still standing.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely. Oh, I 100% agree. And another thing I can add, Tara, is too, is keep your rules consistent. Don't make rules for different people.
Thank you.
That everybody that you get in contact with, because I forgot to mention this, I called them one time and I was living out of county because I wanted to leave my abuser. They told me I could not come to shelter there because I wasn't in county. I called, cried, told them I was from that county. My parents lived there. I grew up there. Refused. When I was in shelter, they let a woman drive all the way from North Carolina to get shelter with them. And I sat there and I went to one of the workers and I said, can you explain this to me? Because I was a county over and she's states away. And they could not give me an answer. And I was not trying to stifle anybody's protection, but I wanted to understand you have to be telling the same thing when these people are calling.
Consistency. Yes.
Consistency, because they are the first thing that you hear when they pick up the phone is this person. That's a make or break. Just like as we know for a support line, you have to be consistent. It's a make or break. If they're vulnerable, we are in fight or flight. You need to be clear, concise, and honest. That's all we
Exactly.
need.
Yep.
Absolutely. So let's go back to the comments one more time before we close out. So I have Lily here asking, how do you get through or manage the separation, like the no contact? I feel I can't breathe. What would
Lily,
you suggest? Yeah, Amanda, go ahead.
it's really hard. Trauma bond is normal. It's very normal when you're leaving and going in and out, because again, it's something that we have to learn to go through. With the right support and support system, you will be able to get through it. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but you are strong enough to be able to get to a point with the knowledge that you will get from the right community will be able to understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling now. I promise you that, because I was there for a very, very long time. Very long time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Miss Amanda. And what people don't understand, and a lot of people can't wrap their head around, but all this group and you, Miss Lily, we understand. Just because you're leaving, it doesn't mean that it's not like light switch. That feeling doesn't go away. You don't just stop caring about that person because you're leaving. That's what makes it so hard. But it will get easier. You just got to surround yourself with people that understand what you're going through. It's like a grieving process of death. You're grieving the death, but it takes time. You got to surround yourself with people that understand what you're going through. They aren't going to tell you just to get over it, because you can't just wake up one morning, okay, I'm all better. No, you got to surround yourself with people that are like-minded, that have been on that journey. They're going to be there and pick up the phone and go, I understand why you're upset, and it's okay not to be okay today, but it is going to get better. I've been there. And just take it one day at a time, or 1 minute or 1 second at a time, however you have to handle it, however you feel best.
Absolutely. And it's hard with children. And I hear you, Lily. You said with 4 kids, I just can't throw them to someone to get help. I absolutely get it. I did not have a village. I had 3 young children. They were toddlers when I was in the depth of my abuse, and you are consistently not only thinking about yourself, but you have to think for those kids. And I get it. And I promise you, the more that you keep pushing and persevering, it will be the best for them as well. And I get it. It's so hard when you're a mom on top of this. It's a whole other battle. It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so proud of
Jim
you.
says that all of us ladies, and we're including you in this, Lily, you are brave. And
Yes.
the willingness to speak out here shows how brave you are. So, absolutely, Lily, I wanted to point that out to you because you are very brave and you're special. And there is support out there for you. Definitely call our support line. I saw that you were going to do that.
Yes.
It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength. And the thing is that you've survived the worst you can survive, the new life that you'll receive when you come out the other end.
Mm-hmm.
We're all here to tell you.
Yeah.
It takes time, Audrey. That's right. It takes time. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I want to thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming on the podcast. So, this conversation today was a bit heavy, right? But it's one we definitely needed to have. Shelters are a lifeline. And when they function as they should, they save lives and they provide safety, stability. They help you have a chance to rebuild. Like we said, we want definitely you to go to shelters that you can go to. There are some great facilities out there who are willing to help you with great advocates who will stand by you every step of the way. But we do have to shore up a safety net around the shelters that are a crack in our system.
Yep.
We also have to fight when funding disappears to help keep these shelters open. So when survivors are left out in the cold, or they're hungry, they're without the resources they promised, what do we do? Well, today we've heard how some of those shelters failed. And because whether it's corruption or mismanagement or neglect, the system can be broken at times. And it doesn't mean we give up on shelters, right, ladies?
No.
It
They're
means
needed.
we're going to fight for them to do better.
Yes.
That's what it means.
Yes.
So, as a community, we can hold them accountable. So if you hear or see about a shelter that's failing survivors, do not stay silent about it. Report them to the boards. Report them to local agencies or even that media, because like Jim said early in there, transparency is the key. And support your shelters, because not all of them are failing. They do incredible work. They need volunteers. They need donations, fundraisers, workers. We need that too here at Break the Silence. Anybody who's doing this work, that kind of thing is always needed. So be sure to support. Ask the hard questions. If you're donating money, where's that money going to? If these shelters receive federal grants, push for transparency as to how funds are being used. That helps keep them accountable. And listen to us survivors, right? Our voices are the most important here in this conversation. Yep. If they're telling you a shelter is mistreating them, believe them and help amplify their voices. Demand that change. And Sheila, you're so brave, and Angie for doing so in your area. So absolutely, we just want to acknowledge that. Push for better policies and contact your local representatives if you need to. So change doesn't happen overnight, and it sure doesn't happen in silence. Nope. If we want better shelters and resources, we got to take action. So thank you, ladies, for your vulnerability here in this topic and your strength. It's incredible to have you on here. and the work you're doing for survivors. So thank you very much.
Love you, Mama Tara.
So everybody watching out there, your support can make a difference. So continue to empower survivors and educating communities. We here at Break the Silence need your help. Our donations fuel the mission here. It provides resources, support, and hope for those affected by domestic violence. Our resources we use towards support line, resources for survivors, for our retreats, as you heard before. And you can make a difference by donating to any of the following platforms. We have a website, www.breakthesilencedv.org. You can donate there. We have a GoFundMe, Patreon, Venmo, even PayPal, and we take money through My Giving Circle, which is an accredited form of donating to any nonprofit. So look for us. We'll either be under Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence or BTSADV. And your contribution, no matter what, can bring us one step closer to breaking this cycle. So stay connected and spread the word. And don't forget to like and share and subscribe and help us out. And just as a little teaser, next week on Through the Eyes of Survivors Uncensored, we're going to be tackling part of our conversation. We're going to have several ones, but one of the we're going to tackle is a policy out of Oklahoma that's kind of leaving survivors stunned. So, imagine you're finally escaping your stalker, to only have the state send them a notice on your behalf telling them to stop. Sounds like protection, right? Well, but what if that notice actually puts the victim in more danger instead of keeping them safe? So we're going to talk about whether or not this is well-intended law can backfire for victims of domestic violence. So come back and see us next week. We're going to break that down with several other hot topics on Uncensored, and talk about how lawmakers can truly protect victims, right? So you don't want to miss that one. And we will see you back here next Wednesday. Thank you so much.
Have a great evening. Love y'all.
Yes, you too.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this